Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, distinguished guests, and folks of all stripes, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Space Cadet Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Salazar Jr., and this is your Houston Astros Die Hard Podcast. I'm Paul Salazar Jr. I'm a Houston native. I was born basically inside the Astrodome. I've been a Houston Astros fan forever, my whole life. I am an entertainment professional. I'm a comedy writer, just general silly person. I've been in Los Angeles for over the last decade now, and we're coming to you live. We're coming to you in studio here in Los Angeles. Definitely not live. I do not have the patience or the capacity for that right now to do a live podcast. Maybe one day. But I am a diehard Houston Astros fan. I definitely started this podcast because I get so frustrated by the way the national media covers the Astros, and sometimes I get frustrated by some of the beat writers that just tend to stoop to hate to get clicks and to make sure that people are paying attention to them. You know, I don't understand all the anger around sports all the time. Definitely there's a lot to be angry about right now. This is not just a Homer podcast where we just talk about only the good things. We definitely want to talk about the frustrations of this team. I'm just not going to do it in a way that's like needs to belittle other people or belittle professional athletes for what they do. You know, it's good to call them to be better, but it's another thing to be just a complete jerk about it. So we try to do things with a little bit of empathy around here. We try to be a decent fan, try to make sure our fandom isn't toxic in these parts, folks. The Astros have had a tough season so far this season, so it has been a tough season for the podcast. To try to remain positive, to try to remain not toxic when every other podcast around here is just completely angry, and they've been angry since the first day. To be quite honest, like I started the official Houston Astros panic meter the first week of the season this year because people just love to hate. They love to be angry. So we will be upset here. We will be frustrated by things that have happened during the games, but that's not our main driver here. We still are Houston Astros fans. At the end of the day, we love this team. We want them to get better, and we're here to support them no matter what. Let's get into it, folks. Yeah, the last time we talked was before the Twin series. I do apologize. If you can tell, I've definitely been sick lately. I have been struggling to remain healthy, and that has greatly affected my ability to produce blogs and blog articles, my meme recap, my meme reactions, apologies, and the podcast. It's been a tough struggle this week, so I appreciate those of you who follow, those of you who are subscribers to the blog. Thank you for that. And I apologize. It's been a little bit of a slower week with content for me. It is not because I'm so disheartened by these Astros. I mean, I totally am, but I'm not calling it. I'm not saying the season's over. I'm just sick. But yeah, let's talk about this. It's going to be a little bit of a rougher show here. I'll try to be quicker. Try not to cough all over you folks. Make sure you're taking your medicine. Make sure you're doing the proactive things to stay healthy this summer. I definitely being someone who has to be around people a lot of the time. I try my hardest to stay healthy and do preventative steps, use preventative measures to make sure I'm not getting sick or getting others sick. I have been very careful since I have been sick. It just seems to be a little bit of a cold, but still, folks, you want to be careful. Now is not the time to be playing with your health out there. Definitely stay healthy. If not just so you can stay healthy, but also for work. I mean, my goodness, it's been tough to try to get on this podcast. Sounding like a cartoon character with a stuffy nose from a commercial. Maybe that's what I should be doing. I should be going out and auditioning for those decongestant commercials right now. I'd be the perfect actor for those commercials. But moving forward, folks, oh man. apologies. I am here in studio with my co-host and producer, Carla the dog. She's right here. She has been the best nurse that I can ask for when I am feeling sick. She's here. She says hi. She says she loves you. She might get on mic as the day goes on. But yeah, let's talk about it. So Hunter Brown, had the last start of the Twin series here, folks, where the Astros lost 4-3 yesterday in a heartbreaking game where the Astros definitely wanted to win, needed to win, I should say, as well. Hunter Brown started the game, gave a pretty good performance, gave a quality start, but the game was lost in the late innings by Ryan Presley, who has been greatly struggling in the sense of results this season. In the post-game press conference, Joe Espada was talking about how, Ryan Presley has definitely ran into a lot of bad luck, which is true, which is very true. So if you, I'm pulling it up right now, but if you look at Ryan Presley's statistics this season, they reflect that he has perhaps ran into some bad luck. So we're looking at his stats here, his standard pitching. His ERA on the season is 5.24, which we all know is not the best indicator of how successful a pitcher is doing, especially a relief pitcher whose ERA can fluctuate pretty wildly in the first couple of months of the season. We know that we are now in the summer, but still, it takes a while to get those numbers, to get the right sample size. Right now, he has pitched 22 innings, which is a decent sample size, but with how terribly he started the season, those numbers are still going to be inflated. His FIP, however, is at 2.78, lower than last season. While his whip is at 1.6. So, it seems as if, I was reading that his line drive rate is up. The line drive rate is up. People are catching Ryan Presley's pitches a little bit better and squaring them up, getting better hits, not grounding out or not popping them up. They're getting a lot more line drives this season. The field independent pitching stat, definitely is saying that perhaps he is the recipient of a lot of bad luck. If all the things that he can control, generally his FIP is that low that, that's saying that he gets into some bad luck. His ERA plus is at a 74, so he's very much below league average with his with his ERA plus number there. And what I wanted to say is that I do think that I've said it earlier. I think that the back end of the rotation has been falling into a lot of bad luck this season. However, I do think with Ryan Presley, there might be a little bit more than just bad luck. And now this is a type of the blog. I feel like I say it every podcast. Or on every blog post. I am a fan. A lot of the things that I am saying here, while I have watched a lot of baseball and I have been around baseball, as a kid a lot. I do know. I say as a kid. I'm sorry. I'm sick. I have been around baseball, but not as a player. I played as a kid is what I'm trying to say here. I'm not, I've been around baseball for a while, but I'm not trying to pretend to be something that I'm not. I'm not trying to pretend to be an expert on a bunch of things, like these other blogs that are telling you they're body language experts. These players have quit. I don't know. I'm no body language expert, and neither are they. So they, like, what are they talking about? But what I am looking at when I'm looking at Ryan Presley is this stuff doesn't seem to be quite as sharp as it has been in previous years. I do worry about a pitcher like Ryan Presley. I feel like last season his form fell off just slightly. He obviously was still able to be very successful in the season and, in the postseason even. But I do, I was happy when they signed another reliever to the back end of the bullpen because I honestly thought this season, even if Ryan Presley was pitching good, that Brian Abreu would most likely leapfrog him in terms of talent and in terms of actually being the closer that this team needs. No disrespect to Ryan Presley. It's just that I think that, as you age and if you're not, if he's a type of closer and pitcher that's working with pitch shapes and not necessarily with speed, and that's a lot of the guys that the Astros go after. We're going with breaking pitches, we're going with movement, we're going over high velocity because high velocity can sometimes be a foolish thing to chase in baseball. Just ask Framber Valdez. If when he goes for that higher velocity sinker, that sinker doesn't locate quite as well, and if you know batters are able to catch a mistake sinker too high up in the zone and it's also coming at you at a higher velocity, they could barrel up that ball, get a better exit velocity on it, and they could start hitting those sinkers a lot harder and for a lot more power than they could if the pitch was a little less velocity and was located where it is more effective. So yeah, the Astros are very much about breaking pitches and not about high speed velocity. They're looking at movement. Not always breaking pitches like the Christian Javier Invisiball, the four seamer that lifts. Like the Astros like movement. That's what they look for in pitchers. So Ryan Presley very, very much fits that role. He's not your traditional flamethrower closing pitcher. He works and relies more on that movement. This season, it just doesn't look like he's fooling people very much. It's hard to sit back and say that pitch was a mistake when you really don't always know where they're trying to locate or what exactly they're trying to accomplish. But it just seems like he's making some more mistakes than normal. Apologies for the dog barking outside, folks. But yeah, I just worry about Ryan Presley. I don't think it has anything to do with where he is pitching in the lineup. I just think that he has struggled this season, and I've said that he's needed to make some tweaks in the past, and he has made some tweaks. I'm just a little concerned that there's something a little off. We need to get Ryan Presley right. It's getting to the point now where I feel like perhaps we should be thinking about putting Abreu as a setup man, more specifically in the eighth. But Abreu hasn't been that consistent himself either. So it's been a tough look for the Astros bullpen in the late innings right now because there's been very inconsistent results. But that's been this team across the board. It's been inconsistent all around. Sorry about that. Had to go check on Carla to make sure all that barking was a little out of hand. Wanted to make sure she was good, but she's a good girl. That had nothing to do with Carla. That was a neighbor dog, but she wasn't even antagonizing the dog, so she's a good girl. But anyway, back to the Astros. The Astros' inconsistencies have been tough this season. I think when you look at Hunter Brown, I think Hunter Brown, for better or worse, Hunter Brown has been the Astros' starting pitcher this season. He has started more games as a starter than any other starter, and his struggles have very much been the perfect metaphor for the Astros' struggles. You can map them directly over themselves. Hunter Brown started off this season very poorly. He had a tough start of the year. He was giving away record number of runs in the first inning in the start of the season. He's still struggled with giving up runs in the first inning, and he tends to get better as the game goes on. Simultaneously, Hunter Brown has given us 3 quality starts in his 3 last starts, but he's lost all 3 of them. Getting 2 no decisions and 1 loss. So, it feels like Hunter Brown has turned the year around, but now that he's turned it around, the Astros offense is not able to produce enough runs to get them to win games. This Astros team right now is completely frustrating because in my, when you're looking at it, they have the tools, they have the players, they have the talent, but what they don't have is the ability to piece it all together at once. And you kind of are looking around to figure out where the problems are. You can't just blame everything on luck, even though, I've said that it's been a bunch of bad bounces. Joe Espada has said bad luck. Everybody's talking about luck, but that's because you look at these stats and they're not quite as abysmal as you would think they are. Now, the pitching stats have been a little rough, that's for sure. The Astros pitching has been tough this season, but the last couple of weeks, they've started to turn it around, even before even with Christian Javier and Jose Urquidy, not being able to rejoin the team. It looks like Christian Javier should not have rejoined the team. When he rejoined the team, I've been saying that he just doesn't quite look right. His fastball averages have been dipping in velocity. And while we're saying we're not chasing velocity, when it looks like someone is losing velocity, and that quickly, that could be a sign of injury. Now, I'm not a trainer, I'm not a medical professional, so that we take this with a grain of salt. We remember this is a fan podcast, but in my opinion, it did not look like Christian Javier was quite ready to come back, and they were rushing him to come back because we need to start him pitching. If everything is looking good, green light, green light, green light. Let's get our pitchers back. But it looks like perhaps we should have, the team should have exercised a little bit more caution because perhaps Christian Javier is not quite ready to return yet. And Jose Urquidy was not ready to come back off of his minor league start, still having arm discomfort. Now, there's been a lot of people that have been very critical of the Astros, saying that, the Astros, when it comes to injuries, they're always talking about discomfort. They don't give us a lot of information. Well, I'll ask you, why do they have to give you information? Why do they have to give you information? Okay? The information is power, right? So when you are the Houston Astros and you are looking to trade, you're looking to trade players, you're always looking to wheel and deal, you're looking to sign players, whether or not the Astros are going to be buyers or sellers at the deadline, it's not in your best interest to always let the league know exactly what you're looking for or exactly what problems you're having. That's not good competition. So I don't think the Astros withhold information from us because they don't want the fans to know what's going on. I think they don't want other teams to know what's going on. Like in this day and age when knowledge and data is everything, why give your enemies the knowledge of what exactly is going on in your system? So to me, that's what that is. The Astros have been like that for plenty of seasons. It's not a Joe Espada thing. It's not a Dusty Baker thing. If anything, it's maybe not a James Clay. It's the owner, Jim Crane thing. I don't think this is a new thing. And I also don't think it's that big of a deal. I think that as long as they're being forthright with their players and their training staff as to what's going on, it's really not anything we need to know. But I do understand people's frustration to be like, well, other teams do it. But, why be other teams? Just because other teams do something doesn't mean that we need to do it. So I don't understand that frustration from fans. That doesn't bother me none. That's just secrecy, corporate secrecy. And, if you want the Astros to be able to do good trades, maybe we don't want the league to know all of our business. But it has been frustrating with all these pitching injuries, and with that has essentially made Hunter Brown the main starter for the Astros, and he has had a tough season, and the Astros have had a tough season. So I'm just saying that metaphor, his season, as Hunter Brown goes, the Astros will go. So right now, Hunter Brown is finally getting right. The Astros offense needs to support him and needs to carry him. This offense has been decent this season. They have led the league in a lot of different metrics. They have really struggled with runners in scoring position and getting insurance runs. If they were able to get some insurance runs in some of these Twins in some of these games these past few weeks, they would have been able to win them. These games against the Twins, these games against the Angels, these games against the Mariners, they have just not been able to execute to get insurance runs or to get runs with runners in scoring position. As I was saying earlier in the season, I think this has something to do with the fact that they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves. Sometimes you need to take the pressure off and to play within your game. I was talking in the last podcast about the Astros' offensive philosophy and how they just try to put the hurt on the pitchers the first time through the lineup. But sometimes that could be a tough thing to see for the Astros because it gets them into just swinging way too frequently. The Astros, while they need to attack the pitcher early, you can only attack the pitcher if they're pouring in strikes. If you go in there trying to attack and you are swinging outside of your range, if you're swinging outside of, because not every player, just needs to swing at strikes. Jose Altuve and Jordan Alvarez, are very capable of swinging balls outside of the strike zone and doing some damage with them. However, it's just knowing which pitches to take and which pitches to swing at. And right now, the Astros have not been taking as many pitches as I would have liked them to. Now, I also don't want them to be less aggressive the first time through the lineup. I think a lot of people, that you see teams like the Yankees that are extremely patient. And that's not who the Astros have completely been. The Astros do get more and more patient as the game goes on. But early on in the game, they tend to be a little bit more aggressive at trying to put the hurt on the starting pitcher and make life miserable for them. I still think that philosophy works. This is still the team that or the organization, I should say, as well, that we have seen in years past. Like, people are really freaking out because of this could be a bad season for the Astros. We will, I believe after the St. Louis Cardinal series, I do want to do a video podcast and update the panic meter, the official Space Cadet Sports Houston Astros panic meter this season. I think it's about time to adjust it. I have not been panicking lately, but now that we're into June, now that the Astros have been losing way too many series for my liking, is it time to raise the panic meter? We'll have to see, folks. I obviously, if I'm not saying we're completely panicking right now, I'm not completely panicking. I don't think this is a completely panic moment. This summer will be very telling for what the Astros are able to do, specifically this June. I was wanting the Astros to make it to 500 by May. They have not made it to 500 by May. By the end of May, I should say. I wanted them to be at 500 going into June. I wanted them to actually be able to make some noise at the top of this division. Now, while they might not be at 500, this division, this AL West, AL weak division, has not done too much while the Astros have been struggling. I do think that the Mariners, like Forbes says, they're a mediocre team. The Mariners are a team that the Astros can beat. They just need to be able to get, honestly, they need to be able to get better offense. Their pitchers did what they were supposed to do against the Mariners in that series. The offense wasn't able to carry the team. They weren't able to give run support. So right now, the Astros are in the dregs. They are struggling on offense, but the pitching is starting to solidify. So what we want is the Astros to stop this seesaw Astros, this Jekyll Hyde Astros, and start to find some consistency. I've been saying that this is the same organization. These are the same players. I've seen them succeed before. They're still getting good success. They're just failing sometimes in these big moments. They seem like the imposter Astros. These Fanatics jerseys have turned them into the imposter Astros. They're not the majestic Astros. Bring the majestic jerseys back. What have you done to me? Nike, what have you done to me? But I do think these imposter Astros, are hopefully gonna figure it out. Jose Abreu looks like he's actually getting better results at the plate. And I'm not talking about in terms of his hits. I'm just looking at his swings. His swings do look 1,000 times better. This does look like a baseball player and not a very struggling baseball player that we're worried is too old to play. I think Jose Abreu can bring some offense to the Astros. He hit a home run the other day. His swings look better. However, I think it's honestly time until Jose Abreu is able to provide you with more consistency at the plate. He should be splitting time with Singleton. I was anticipating Abreu to have to earn his way back, and I do think hitting that home run has helped him get another start. But going forward, I really want to see more of a split until he's truly back. He's not back yet. I do think he's hitting eighth or so in the lineup, which is what you want to see if he's going to be in there. You don't want him fifth and sixth and stuff where he's been earlier in the season. And you got to credit Espada. Espada is doing his best. He's been putting Dubon and Myers in there. Dubon and Myers have been on fire lately. We need those guys to be in the lineup. I really, no offense to Chaz, who has had some struggles lately. He did get a good bunt hit. Good bunt base hit the other game. Chas McCormick is a gamer. He will figure it out. But right now, we don't want to have extra players figuring it out on the roster. If we're going to be dealing with Abreu figuring it out, we don't want McCormick figuring it out on there as well. We have Myers, we have Dubon, who have had a great season and are on a tear right now. We need to be starting and playing them. I really think that I want to see going forward this month, until Chaz and Jose Abreu have got it back together, I want to see less playing time from them and more playing time from Dubon, more playing time for Myers, and to a little bit lesser extent, John Singleton. John Singleton, in my mind, is a great player, but he's still that platoon player. He's still that backup role. He's a good DH, And also, I hate to say it, I think a lot of other fans hate to say it, but Victor Caratini, we really need to start figuring out if we want more of a Caratini Diaz split. For the last couple games of the Minnesota Twins series, manager Joe Espada decided to give Yainer Diaz a couple days off to kind of reset and kind of figure out why his May has been so tough by just giving him a little time off to get some rest. Yainer Diaz had a really great April, really great first start to the month. He was not swinging at pitches outside of the zone. He was working walks. He was hitting fairly well. And then in May, he just started swinging a lot more. He was a lot more aggressive with his swings. Joe Espada was saying that they need him to be more patient at the start of his swing. He's getting it started a little too early, I believe, was what those comments were essentially addressing. But Yainer Diaz has had a really rough May, and Victor Caratini has just continued to grow the myth of and legend of Victor Caratini since he's been here in Houston, and it's looking like he's an awesome baseball player. So why not have more Caratini in? But if you The problem would be if we're splitting Caratini and Diaz, that could really be a huge shot to Diaz's confidence. However, maybe that's what the Astros need right now is to consistency and not to worry too much about Diaz, who knows he could be part of this team long term. He just needs to turn it around. I think with his offensive struggles, his catching, his framing rate is been really bad so far this season. I think he has good framing skills. I just think that it's a lot for Yainer Diaz to juggle. There's a lot of things that go into being an everyday catcher, and it's not exactly the same as it is on the minor league level. There's a lot more intensity, there's a lot more focus, there's a lot more meetings, there's a lot more things to do as an everyday catcher. And those intangibles are why I liked Martin Maldonado, because he was just a professional catcher. Now, he definitely wasn't a professional hitter. You didn't have that expectation from Maldonado, but that's why people were frustrated with him. A lot of those intangibles, those things that you really can't grasp and put your hands on, when those are your strengths, people don't tend to see those as strengths. Yainer Diaz will be able to figure this out. He has the tools to be a great Major League Baseball catcher. He's just taking some lumps and learning some lessons. And in that time, maybe we should be giving Victor Caratini a little bit more look, a little bit more starts, while that is happening. However, if we do split the time at catcher, that really puts a pressure on the spots for Chas McCormick and Jose Abreu and John Singleton, or to another extent, Myers and Dubon. You have so many mouths to feed in this outfield and so many mouths to feed on this roster that it is hard sometimes to rotate a new guy in. So if we're rotating Caratini in, that means less DHing spots for John Singleton, which would mean less opportunities for Abreu, and obviously if you're doing more of that, maybe you're going to have Yordan. If you're doing more DHing with Caratini or Diaz, you're going to have more Yordan Alvarez in left field, which would mean less Myers or less Dubon or even less Chaz in the outfield. So bringing Caratini onto DH or bringing Yainer Diaz onto DH and using a catcher split would be a good idea, but it also could very much could very much eat into other players' playing time. It's going to be a balance for Joe Espada. I think he's done a great job this season. I don't see why people have been calling for his job already. I think people that are doing that just don't understand baseball, have no patience. I mean, it's one season. It's been like 60 games. It's not, calm down, everybody. These results, I don't think Dusty Baker or any other manager would have better results with this team, with the injuries they've had, and with the roster they've had, that you've had to feed so many different mouths and keep so many different egos happy. I think Joe Espada has done a great job. I think as we go on, as the season continues, we will look at GM Dana Brown and his roster decisions and what that has meant for the season, and if those have really put the Astros in a position to succeed, or if there are other decisions that should have been made to put the Astros in a position to succeed that he could have done. Obviously, the one that I've been critical of, or that fans have been critical of, has been Blake Snell. That Dana Brown should have signed Blake Snell. I have, since day one, I've been like, no, I don't think that's it. And his pitching injuries in history this season has very much shown that wasn't it. I do understand how fans are like, well, we need more starting pitching. We just get more starting pitching. Like it's some kind of freaking video game. That's not how it works. The real world doesn't work like that. You can only choose from the people available, and if the people available aren't great or overpriced, then you're kind of out of luck. You got to go find some pitchers in the minor leagues, or in like pitchers like Eric Lauer. So we will see. Time will tell. A lot of these things, you really, it takes more time to really tell if something is good or not. We really have another year or so to figure out if the Rafael Montero signing was actually as bad as we think it was. He could turn it around. What if Montero actually turns it around and is able to be a setup guy for the Astros when they need some back-end bullpen help right now? We don't know. So with more time, we'll be able to tell what these moves meant and how critical we could be of these guys. But right now, I just don't see heavy criticism because of how terrible the season has gone for the Astros. We do need some better results from the players. We do need to make sure that Dana Brown is bringing the right pitchers up. It looks like we might have a little bit more of a pitching carousel going forward as we're having some more pitcher injuries. So we will see how these Astros are doing going forward. Now, going forward, the Astros are going to be playing the St. Louis Cardinals at home today for a 3-game homestand. Today, Justin Verlander will be taking the mound against Kyle Gibson of the St. Louis Cardinals. Kyle Gibson has a storied career, veteran pitcher who's off to a pretty decent start this season. So it will be the battle of the vets today, Monday, for the St. Louis game. On Tuesday, Spencer Arrighetti will be going up against Andre Palante, right-handed young pitcher from St. Louis, who's had a pretty slightly elevated stats so far in his young career. We'll see what he can do. Hopefully, Spaghetti Arrighetti continues on his success and keeps building. And then on the final game, we have Ronel Blanco taking the mound for the Houston Astros versus Miles Mikolas, another veteran pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals, who has a little bit more elevated stats on this young season. So those are your pitching matchups for the St. Louis Cardinals games, folks. My voice is quitting on me. My brain is quitting on me. My body is shutting down. So on that note, we're going to go ahead and call it for this episode of the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. I've been your host, Paul Salazar Jr. You can find me on social media at Paul Salazar Jr. Please check out the blog. You can find the Space Cadet Sports blog at spacecadetsports.substack.com. You can go there, become a subscriber for free, and you get every blog post, every game recap, every meme delivered directly to your inbox for free. You get all the content there that we put up on the website. Very little things go behind a paywall. I do want to make this, very accessible for all Houston Astros diehard fans everywhere. Definitely think of giving me a subscribe, supporting the podcast wherever you're listening to this on. Definitely give us a like, rate, and review this podcast, and let's build this Houston Astros community of diehard fans that love this team and want to see them succeed and want to be able to talk about this team without going completely crazy negative and being angry all the time. This is a team that has given us so much fun and joy over the past couple years, past 7 years, really. Let's give them their flowers, folks. So having a tough season, that happens in baseball. We're hoping that they can still turn this season around here at the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, folks. We're going to keep positive here. We're going to keep our head up. So you out there, keep your head up, son. And as always, vamos Astros.